Internal memo. Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department. November 13, 2021. I've witnessed many things during my 17 years with the Homicide Investigation Unit. Serial killers, bloody accidents, even dismembered bodies. But the case at 143 Holloway Street left my entire team silent during the press conference. And to this day, I can't sleep peacefully at night. The victim was a woman named Lena Morrow, 29 years old. She lived alone with no close family and worked at a second-hand bookstore near downtown. A neighbor called 911 at 2:14 a.m., reporting hearing screams not of this world coming from Lena's house. When the police arrived, the front door was slightly ajar, and inside was a scene that made 2 officers vomit on the spot. The living room was pitch black. All the light bulbs had been torn out, shattered on the floor. There was no light except for an old TV tuned to static, emitting a sound like whispering children. On the living room wall, someone had used blood to draw a series of repetitive circular symbols. He sees, he waits. Lena was found in her bedroom. Her body had been torn apart, the only way I can describe it. No knife, no weapons found at the scene, but her torso had been slashed vertically, from the sternum down to her lower abdomen, as though something with claws sharp as scalpels had done this. In the corner of the room was an old tape recorder, a reel-to-reel machine from the 80s. The odd thing was that it was recording. The police removed the tape as evidence. It wasn't until nearly a week later that we dared to play it back, but that's a story for later. At the time, when searching the house, the forensic team found no signs of forced entry. No footprints, no fingerprints, no hair, no foreign body odor. But in the bedroom, on the mirror, was a black handprint. Not dirt, but as if it had been burned into the glass, seared by fire. We were nearly desperate for clues until 3 days later. A man, covered in blood, appeared on the freeway 17 miles from the scene, sitting under an overpass, mumbling to himself. His name was Ethan Beller, 31 years old, with a history of mild mental illness. When the police found him, his hands were still stained with dried blood, and he was smiling, but not looking at anyone. I personally interrogated him that night. He didn't say much except for one line. I didn't kill her. He killed through me. I've heard mentally unstable people, the ears of the listener. I watched her. I was in the mirror, in the TV, in the dark spaces. She saw me, and she screamed. The entire interrogation room went deathly silent. I turned to Officer Morton, who was running the recording equipment. His face was pale. I asked, "Did you modulate the voice?" Morton shook his head. "No, sir. It's raw, original." That voice didn't match anyone in our records. We sent the audio sample to the analysis department, and they reported back that the voice didn't match any known human phonetic patterns in the system. The pitch was off, the frequency unusual, with a wavelength under 40 Hz, lower than what humans can produce. I asked the crime scene team to return to 143 Holloway Street for a closer inspection. But that night, Officer Reeves, the one who had opened the door, abandoned his post and slammed his head into the police station restroom wall, screaming. "It's in my ears! It talks to me when I sleep!" He survived, but lost the ability to speak or write. Psychiatric diagnosis: acute chronic panic, level 4. Afterward, I went to the house myself again, and I swear I heard something from the old tape recorder still in the evidence room. Even though the tape had been removed, a sound like breath right next to my ear, even though I was standing alone in the storage room. Internal memo, Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department, November 14, 2021, 3:27 p.m. I don't believe in demons, or at least I didn't. But what happened during the interrogation that day, the sounds I heard, the things I felt deep in my spine, have made me question reality. We brought Ethan Bella into interrogation room 3. This is a soundproof room with no windows, only a one-way mirror and 2 wide-angle cameras recording continuously. I had them set up a high-frequency recording device, usually used in terrorism cases, to capture every sound, no matter how faint. When we entered, Ethan was sitting huddled, his hands cuffed to the table, his eyes fixed on a dark corner on the left side of the ceiling, where there was nothing but a red flashing security camera. I placed a glass of water in front of him. He didn't look at me, didn't blink. I started with some basic questions. "What's your full name?" "Ethan." Bella
had a mild seizure, and then he spoke. But the voice that came out wasn't Ethan Bella's. The voice was clear, not trembling, but deep, firm, and very familiar. She looked in the mirror at 3:13 a.m. She knew I was there, but she didn't turn away. She looked at me until I stepped out of the glass. I froze. That voice, cold as steel, slow, echoing as if coming through a rusted speaker. The entire room seemed to drop in temperature. I felt goosebumps on my skin, not from fear, but from the sensation that my body was being watched. I activated the mic and asked, "Who are you?" Ethan didn't look at me. His eyes were still fixed on the dark corner of the ceiling. The voice responded, "I am the last thing she saw, the reflection she feared. I don't have a name, but you've given me many. Shadow, Mirror Man, the man on the ceiling. Pick whichever you like." I pulled the mic back, pretending to steady myself, but my heart was pounding. Morton, who was observing through the one-way mirror, called me over the intercom. "Boss, the recorder, it's picking up a different voice. It has an unusual low-frequency range, below human speaking capability." I continued, "If you're not Ethan, then where is he?" The voice, or whatever was coming from Ethan's mouth, chuckled softly, the sound rasping like nails scraping against rusted metal. "He's here, inside, talking through his mouth, terrified, crying, just like that girl cried when I peeled her face off." I felt an invisible pressure in the room. The air thickened as though someone was standing very close, but I couldn't see them. A cold sweat trickled down my back. I asked, "Why her?" A pause. Then the voice spoke, this time softer, colder. "Because she believed something was watching. And when a person believes, they allow it. When they believe in the dark, I can step out."
I went silent for a few seconds. This wasn't talking like a mental patient. It was logical, purposeful. Suddenly, Ethan jerked. His body convulsed as if electrocuted. His eyes rolled back. He screamed, but the scream wasn't human. It echoed like a sound from the bottom of a well. Immediately, all the recording devices cut out. All the lights in the room flickered off in zero point 0.5 seconds, then back on. When the lights returned, Ethan collapsed onto the table, his mouth bleeding. On his arm, blood had formed into a message. "It's not over." We rushed him to the hospital. Ethan survived.
Faint whisper. He hears it, but you don't.
Internal report. Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department, November 16, 2021, 9:12 a.m. I have listened to hundreds of recordings throughout my career. Some are filled with screams, moans, frantic howls, but I've never faced a recording where the most terrifying thing is what isn't there. The interrogation of Ethan Beller, as horrific as it was, could still be attributed to a severe mental disorder. But the recording cannot fabricate emotion. And when I replayed the entire tape, the voice was gone. Yes, that deep, hoarse voice, cold as iron, that once came from Ethan's mouth and sent chills down all of our spines, was no longer on any of the digital recordings. I called in the audio tech team. They checked every piece of equipment: lapel mics, ceiling mics, backup recorders, audio cameras. There were no sound waves outside of mine and Ethan's voices. Audio technician Lisa Darnell was the first to speak. "There's no second voice, I'm certain, but..." "But what?" I asked. She hesitated, then opened an old cassette recorder, one that uses tape from the 90s. We had set this up as a precaution. I wanted to make sure we didn't lose data due to technical failure. Lisa said, "I tried listening to this cassette early this morning, and the voice is there, clearly, but only here." The room fell silent. She played the tape. The usual static buzzed, then my voice asking Ethan questions. A few seconds later, that strange voice came through, unmistakable. She looks at me. She doesn't blink. She calls out to God, but God doesn't listen. Not just the voice. There was also a background sound, like heavy breathing from a far-off place, muffled through thick fabric. Lisa said that when they ran the sound wave through the analysis software, the peaks occurred at a frequency not belonging to human speech. "This frequency, it's more like an echo in a cave, but there's no noise distortion, no natural echo. It's like it was created in an unreal space." I asked Lisa, "Is this something that could be faked?" She looked at me, not answering immediately. After a few seconds, she replied, "Not with ordinary software. There's no sign of cutting or splicing, no layers. It's real by every definition of sound." This news spread quickly within the department. Within 12 hours, everyone in the homicide unit had listened to the tape from the cassette recorder, and the reaction was the same. A silence after the Lena case, the reel-to-reel tape found in her bedroom, still in the evidence locker. The tech team worked for 2 days. Finally, they found something suspicious. Both recordings, Lena's and Ethan's, contained the same voice, same frequency, same echo pattern. But they were from two completely different people, on two devices 30 years apart. An audio expert from the FBI was called in. He seemed confused. "I've seen unusual signals before, but it's as if a presence is speaking through the equipment rather than recording human voices. And what chills me to the bone is both tapes have a short segment that can't be decoded." "Can't be decoded?" I asked. "That segment doesn't exist in any standard frequency range. The machines can't identify it. It's like a gap in the sound, a tear in acoustic reality. We tried cutting out that undecodable segment, stretching it exactly 3.13 seconds, matching the time Lena was murdered, 3:13 a.m. When we played that segment at the original frequency, all the equipment in the room shut down. No sparks, no system errors. It just died. I call it the silent gap, and I have a feeling that's when something stepped out from the other side of the tape. After that night, I began dreaming of Lena. She stood in front of a mirror in an empty room with her back turned to me. But when I called her name, she didn't turn her head. Only the reflection in a mirror turned, smiling and without eyes. I began to wonder, is what is using the cassette tape to speak really just a voice? Or is it something that existed before sound, before language, trying to speak to us through these silences? Internal memo. Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department. November 17th, 2021, 11:44 p.m. I have written many reports in my life, most of them dry, full of jargon, serving as official records. But this time, I am forced to write as if confessing to myself. Because what I am about to share, no one in this field would want to believe. No one could believe it. Ethan Beller was transferred to a psychiatric isolation room at the regional mental hospital. I ordered continuous surveillance cameras in his room, 4 corners, both infrared and full spectrum. I wanted to capture every movement, every blink of his eyes. I thought he was being possessed. I thought
Was no such device in the room. And what was chilling was, this surge only appeared when Ethan's eyes met the mirror. I requested to check the footage, frame by frame, at 120x speed. And at 2:13:06 a.m. on the third day, we saw it. Reflected in the mirror, it wasn't Ethan. The image flashed by for less than 0.2 seconds, but it was clear. In the mirror was a different face. Dark skin, hollow eye sockets as if sucked dry, a mouth grinning from ear to ear, and the eyes, black as tar, but glimmering with a strange, faint blue hue. We rewound that clip 14 times, and each time something new appeared. A shadow in the corner of the room, a shadow that didn't belong to anyone present. Lisa, the audio technician, after watching the video, fainted on the spot. She regained consciousness after 6 minutes, muttering, "It's recording. It's recording even when the machine is off." We had her examined psychologically. The result? Temporary disorientation, but no physical harm. However, the next morning, she sent me an email at 2:11 a.m. with just one line. "I hear the laughter through the mute speaker of the computer." The following morning, she quit her job and disappeared from the city. No one has been able to contact her. I began to lose control. My superiors asked me to close the case for lack of concrete evidence,
but I knew it wasn't a lack of evidence. It was too much evidence that couldn't be accepted. I spent the next 2 days rechecking the crime scene photos from the Lena Morrow case. Under UV light, something unusual appeared. On the ceiling, directly above her blood-soaked bed, there were impressions of bare feet, deeply imprinted into the paint. The foot size was 42. Far too large for Lena. Her shoe size was only 36. But what was strange was the foot placement was completely inverted, as if someone had walked backward on the ceiling. I ordered a thermal scan of the entire crime scene, and on a wall in the east, where we had found the blood symbols, there was a thermal trace in the shape of a spiral, extending from the floor to the ceiling, as if a body had crawled from the ground to the ceiling. I began to dream, not just about Lena anymore, but about Ethan as well. In the dream, I saw him sitting in the dark room, facing me, but this time he didn't speak. I was the one speaking, in its voice. And every time I woke up, my alarm clock displayed exactly one time, 3:13 a.m. It felt like I wasn't observing this case anymore. The case was observing me. Something had used Lena. Now,
Vault. I wrote a playback prohibition order, even for analytical purposes, but a part of me knows it's too late. Because this morning I received an email with an attachment of unknown origin. When I opened it, it was a recording with no title. It was just breathing, hoarse laughter, and finally, that voice whispering in my left ear, "William, you are the next one to see me in the mirror." Internal memo. Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department, November 18, 2021, 5:55 a.m. I haven't slept for the past 48 hours. Every time I close my eyes, I see the mirror. But it's not my reflection. It's a different version, standing still, smiling, waiting for me to fall deep enough into sleep to switch places. I need an escape from this nightmare. And like the instinct of an old investigator, I sought it in the past. I called an old friend, Harry O'Connell, a retired investigator from the King County Police Department, now living in seclusion in a cabin up north. I asked him if he had ever encountered a case like this, with a voice, a recording device, and a victim ripped apart. He was silent for a long time. "You just reminded me of something I spent 20 years trying to forget," he said hoarsely. "You need to come here. Don't call again. Meet me." I drove for 2 hours through thick fog to an old cabin near Sylvan Lake. Harry greeted me in a terrible state. His beard was long, eyes dark and sunken, hands trembling from caffeine or something else. We sat in the living room, only the dim yellow light from an oil lamp illuminating the space. Harry opened an old wooden chest, inside of which were yellowed fires and a reel-to-reel tape identical to the one I found in Lena's house. 1989 case, he said, in a small town called Red Hollow, 160 miles away. The girl killed was Iris Crowley, also 29, lived alone. Her death was inexplicable. No signs, no weapon, but her body was dissected just like Lena Morrow. I flipped through the old crime scene photos, edges worn, stained with blood. But it was unmistakable. On the wall of Iris' apartment, there was the blood-written phrase, "He sees, he waits."
I felt my spine freeze. Harry pulled out a newspaper, Red Hollow Times, from November 5, 1989. A small handwritten segment was underlined. Locals say that before her eyes, in reflections that aren't true. I had to turn off the machine. Harry looked at me, his eyes hollow, containing a haunting obsession that never went away. We went to Iris's house. Inside, there was a recorder like this. But no one dared to play the tape again. 3 people listened. 1 committed suicide. 1 went insane. I left the force. I asked, "Did you ever hear that voice after the case?" Harry nodded, slowly. In my ears, in my dreams, in the screech of the kettle, every time I stared into a mirror for more than 3 seconds, he appeared, not as an image, but as a feeling that I was no longer alone. I asked him for a copy of the tape. Harry took my hand tightly. "You bring it back. You bring him with you. He doesn't need to be near the equipment to talk. He just needs someone to listen." When I left the cabin, it was already dark. The fog was so thick that the headlights could only illuminate a few meters ahead. On the way back, I stopped at a gas station to grab coffee. While washing my face in the restroom, I looked into the mirror and saw myself bleeding from my nose. I reached up, but my nose wasn't injured, yet the reflection continued to bleed and smile. I immediately smashed the mirror. When I returned to the office, I researched the records of Red Hollow, the town where Iris's case occurred. A strange thing. Red Hollow no longer appeared on any official maps. The town had been merged and renamed in 1990 after a strange wildfire. The records were all wiped clean. But I found a scan from a library microfilm, a small handwritten note in the margin of a newspaper. 3 dead after listening to the tape. 1 disappeared without a trace. The recording device was buried in the old church. Don't dig it up. I don't know why Lena Morrow had a similar tape. I don't know why that voice came back after 30 years. But I'm sure of one thing. It never left. It just slept, waiting for someone to play the tape again. Final memo. Investigator William K. Morse, King County Police Department. November 20th, 2021, 2:49. I'm writing these lines from my old office. The lights are off, the door is locked, the phone's battery is removed. I don't know if this will be my final entry or just the beginning of something irreversible. I listened to that tape, and I wish I had never done so. Last night, the final interrogation tape of Ethan Bella was played under orders from higher-ups. Ethan had been in a deep coma for 5 days with no signs of recovery. The psychiatrist suggested we end the legal procedure with whatever clues remain. Player. And we hit play. At first, there was just the weak breathing of Ethan. Then my voice, from that day, echoed, questioning, pressuring, heavy. We had heard this part before, several times. But this time, it was longer. A segment that had never appeared before showed up at the end of the tape. The voice was not Ethan's, nor mine. The voice, colder than before, clearer, as if whispering right into each of our ears. William. Karen, Davis, Lisa, Morton, Harry. It named each person involved in this investigation, each person who had listened to the tape, each person who had seen something they shouldn't have. No one escapes No one forgets. Even if you destroy the tape, the sound is already in your heads. Karen leapt up, demanding the tape be stopped. Davis unplugged the machine. But the voice continued, not through the speakers, not through the equipment. It resonated in the room, as if echoing from the walls themselves. The dim light flickered, the security screen went black. I felt my ears, not in pain, but numb, as if some frequency was forcing them to receive it. You think the sound must come from the device? I don't need the device anymore. I need your attention. Karen clutched her head, screaming, her nose bleeding. Davis scratched at his ears until they bled. I stood there, motionless, unable to speak, only knowing that with every passing second I was being opened up like a fragile wall being shattered by the wind. And then it stopped. No sound, no vibration, only the wall in front of me, where my reflection stared back at me in the soundproof glass. But in that reflection, I was smiling. And I, the real me, was not. Karen was hospitalized with severe neurological disorder. Davis vanished the very next morning. His family reported that he left home in the middle of the night, leaving behind a note with just one line. He speaks through the wind. I hear him in the fan, in the knocking at the door, in the silence. I returned to the evidence locker to destroy the entire tape. I burned it with my own hands. The tape burned slowly, not with a strong flame, but smoldering, as if resisting. In that moment, I heard a tiny sound. Burning me won't kill the words, because I am the words. With cloth. But in the silence, I can still hear him. I don't need light. I don't need equipment. I only need the belief that I exist. Final note. The file, the haunted confession tape, is indefinitely frozen. No copies of the original tape have been found. All personnel involved, either missing or no longer capable of working. The above text was found beneath a desk in room 0B, handwritten by an unidentified person. No camera footage, no traces of entry. The final line was written in dried blood, with no matching DNA in the system.
He sees, he waits, and he speaks again.